Big Meech, like, told on somebody to get out, snitched, did anything extra?
No. Let me tell you why. Big Meech paperwork is public records. There is no proof that Big Meech said, hey, bust him, bust him, bust him. Big Meech, bro, I ain't gonna lie. That man got to that compound, and man, he had some of the guys I would never think that would get EMF, ENT on the left side of his neck, man.
In here with a 27-year sentence based on Demetrius Flannery, as you all know as Big Meech, and Tammy Collins, known in the paperwork as CS1.
Right.
Confidential source 1. So what Big Meech did was call a third-party cooperation.
Is a government informant. So they tell me, he says, you know what this is about? And I said, no. He said, well, you threatened a government informant, and that's a federal.
So Terrence Gangster Williams, who did time with Big Meech, is stepping up and shutting down Fiddy's claims that Meech snitched. Gangster also put it out there that Meech was running the whole prison and had every inmate showing him respect, and this switch-up is shaking things up cuz. Now folks are side-eyeing Fiddy's whole story about Meech being a rat. So is Meech really out here working with the feds? Or is Fiddy just throwing shade cause he is salty that Meech linked up with Rick Ross? What exactly did gangsters spill about Meech's time behind bars? Let's get into it.
It's selective politics and it's selective who they gonna call a rat and who they not gonna call a rat in this industry. So we've been saying that since
An old interview with New Orleans street legend Terrence Gangster Williams just popped back up, where he broke down how Big Meech was calling shots in prison. Gangster said Meech had dudes following his lead like he was a straight up boss, and according to him, Meech was the kind of dude who could walk on any yard and take over. Basically, his influence was on another level, and he didn't even have to force it.
Bro, I ain't gonna lie. That man got to that compound, and man, he had some of the guys I would never think that would get EMF, ENT on the left side of his neck, man. It was tattooed, and he made it clear. He said, listen, I'm not giving nobody no connect, I'm not hooking nobody up with nothing, I'm not doing nothing when y'all go home. So, in other words, you know, people try to get with him just for the game, you know, for me, let it be known, look, I ain't got nothing, nobody. I'm in jail doing my bid, that's what it is, you know what I'm saying? So, man, bro, I literally remember 25 guys after lunch will go to that restaurant with Big Meech. They're going to take over the weight power. They're going to work out. They're going to hit the weights, do the little workout. And after that, Big Meech, whoever got the wine, he going to bottle the wine up. Whoever cooking food, he going to bottle the food up. He going to sit in the cell and hang out and just talk war stories. Just talk about on the streets, man. He was a very good, humble dude, man.
What makes it even wilder is that Meech had a real chance to break out and get back to that millionaire lifestyle before the feds locked him up, but he still chose to do his time. Now we're going to get into that escape talk in a minute. But first, let's break down what Gangster had to say about them snitching rumors on Meech. Y'all already know Fiddy has been out loud with these claims, saying Meech was a federal informant through his old associate Tammy Collins. But when Gangster got pressed about what Fiddy said, he straight up doubted Meech ever cooperated. Not only that, but he low-key called out industry folks like Fiddy for being fake when it comes to who they decide to call a snitch.
Do you think Big Meech, like, told on somebody to get out, snitched, did anything extra?
No. Let me tell you why. Big Meech paperwork is public records. There is no proof that Big Meech said, hey, bust him, bust him, bust him. Now, the situation with the lady Tammy, the female that he cool with or whatever, mess with whatever, I was having an argument with somebody about this last night. Now, if we go by prison rules and standards, Big Meech didn't sit down with the agents and say, hey, my bro gonna go ahead and settle a boy up for me, so make sure y'all give me the credit. So we couldn't make a move on him because his name not in the paperwork for saying
it. To really get why these snitching rumors even started, we got to take it back to the rise and fall of BMF, cause that's what ultimately led to Meech getting hit with that 30-year sentence. And what's crazy is Meech actually had a chance to flee the country and dodge time altogether, but instead of dipping, he stood 10 toes down and took his sentence like a man. That move earned him major respect, but it also set up the mess we see today. like 50 Cent pushing these snitching claims. So let's rewind to the beginning. The Black Mafia family came up in 1985 out of Southwest Detroit, founded by the Flannery brothers, Demetrius Big Meech Flannery and Terry Lee Southwest. They weren't just ambitious, they had a direct pipeline to top-tier Mexican cocaine, and they leveled up quick-moving weight through a family-owned car service.
It's shining like new money. There ain't no other crew like this in the world. There never will be another. Not black. It never will be. Because it said that if like this is shining all together, being together, doing shit every day, then they gonna fall out over some money or somebody gonna rob, steal, and kill. I have yet to see that. All of us get along.
By the early 2000s, BMF had the streets and the club scene on lock, using a flashy entertainment empire as their cover. At their peak, they had 500 members, making major plays all across the country.
We stay at LA, Atlanta, Detroit. We have homes, our own homes. We don't have to go in and rent. We got our own houses, we got our own cars, we got our own hoes, we got our own clothes. You know what I'm saying? And we can't be stopped. I don't see nobody stop. I don't see none to come after us either. None. Nobody will never do this again. It's this many niggas and as much money you can't get.
But Meech and Southwest ain't just woken up at the top. They had to fight for it. They survived turf wars, took over territories, and lost folks along the way. Back in the late 80s, he got hit in the right eye, leaving him partially blind for life. Meech, on the other hand, got shot twice, once in the neck outside a Chinese joint in the 80s, and again in 2004 outside an Atlanta club where he caught one in the backside. That second hit came after a fight with Anthony Wolf Jones, Diddy's ex-bodyguard. And while Meech walked away with minor injuries, Wolf and another dude weren't so lucky. They got taken out that night.
So we were in Club Chaos this particular night, and one of Meech's friends, Wolf, was there. So Wolf and Meech knew each other because he was Puffy's ex-bodyguard, and Puffy and Meech were close. Wolf sees his ex-girlfriend, but she's not with Meech. You know, she's standing on the back wall. Wolf reaches past Meech and mushes her, and Meech was like, "Nah, that's not going down. Whatever y'all got going on, you can handle that privately with her. But if she's standing here with me, I can't have you disrespect her like that."
That led to verbal altercation, physical altercation, which led to Wolf Jones ejected from the club. Demetrius and his bodyguard, Bull Height, were on their way to their vehicle when they encountered Wolf Jones and Riz Gertie waiting for them with guns drawn. Wolf Jones started shooting.
All hell broke loose. Gunfire was coming from everywhere.
Police aren't sure what triggered the violence, but witnesses say dozens of bullets flew near the intersection of East Paces Ferry and Bowling Way.
We all meet up at the house, and it's still not a big deal. You know, Meech is actually leaning on the counter laughing because we're drunk as hell. He's like, "Man, Yogi, my ass is burning." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Man, I think I got shot in the ass." And sure enough, he got shot.
But outside the drug game and street politics, BMF was all about that big money lifestyle. We talking 13 multi-million-dollar cribs spread across the country, a whole lineup of foreign whips, closets stacked with nothing but designer drip, and exclusive access to Jacob the jeweler's iciest custom pieces.
Meech charters a commercial flight for hundreds of people, and Meech paid for everybody. It was a full-blown party in the sky.
I've seen the movie Soul Plane. It was like Soul We had everything set up. Everything was set up for us to party.
Meech always stood on the idea that BMF was built on brotherhood, but when they hit the top, family bonds started cracking. The tension between him and Southwest turned into a full-blown power struggle, and folks who were around back then said even the pettiest arguments would turn into full-in public blowouts. Neither one of them trying to fall back. And at one point, Meech even called T out for stealing from the organization.
One day I found out that T was cutting our dope. T was taking 4 ounces out of each key. He would take 100 bricks and make an extra 20 bricks out of it. He got to break everything down, repress and put it back together. I never done that. He done went about to work with my money and his money, and then he repressed my bricks. Meech wasn't feeling that, and I wasn't feeling it. So Meech told me and Wayne, they're not gonna keep stealing from us, giving us this bad dope. Y'all go deal straight for our supplier, Green Eye.
When BMF was at its peak, Meech and T ended up splitting the whole operation. T moved to LA to keep that Mexican pipeline solid, while Meech locked down Atlanta, keeping the streets buzzing and the club scene even wilder. But once they divided up the empire, the whole squad started picking sides, which only sped up the downfall of the whole movement. By 2000, Meech had his eyes on the music game and launched BMF Entertainment with his flashy ways and natural star power. He fit right in with hip-hop's world of money, power, and excess. BMF wasn't just a street empire anymore. It became the hottest wave in the rap industry back then. All the biggest names in the game were rocking with Meech, Diddy, Jay-Z, T-Jeezy, and even 50 Cent. Everybody was in Meech's circle, and his legendary flexes still get talked about today, from pulling up to the club 100 deep, shutting down VIP sections, and stunting hard like parking his 2 Maybach right next to Jay-Z's, just to let folks know what time it was.
I want to say sky blue or champagne Maybach, and this is when they first came out. Meech drove up in 2 Maybachs. He pulled the Maybachs up, and I don't know if he purposefully did it or whatever the case may be, but he pulled them in order to block in Jay's band. You know, Meech was always friends with Diddy. Like that's his boy. You know what I mean? So that was always his boy. So I think for Meech it was sort of trying to assert his presence, so that he wanted to make it so that Jay had to speak to him in order to get the cars moved or whatever. But it wasn't no beef at all. It was just sort of that I'm rich too, and I'm street rich.
One of the wildest BMF stories still floating around is Big Meech's legendary jungle-themed birthday bash at Magic City. He took flexing to a whole new level that night, bringing out not 1, but 2 white tigers right in the middle of the club like it was nothing.
They was there when it was changed, and they caught it. Okay, we're gonna do this party. We're gonna have the tigers and the lions and, you know what I'm saying, elephants and stuff, all these, you know, like we never seen this type of stuff. Like you can say what you want to say, you know what I'm saying, about, but that type of stuff you only seen in movies, and you didn't even see that in movies. Yeah. Like for real, not no black people really doing it like that. You know what I mean? So from here to Miami, Cancun, you know, renting out the whole jet. You know, it's stuff that people still ain't doing to this day.
Exactly.
Meech and Southwest T deciding to split up how they ran things helped BMF expand, but that growing tension between them played a major part in their downfall. T wasn't rocking with Meech's flashy ways and started complaining about it to family and close friends. But what he ain't know was that the feds had him on wiretaps the whole time. Meanwhile, Meech was still out here living like a king, throwing insane parties where he'd blow millions in a single night. What he didn't realize, though, was that some of the folks in the crowd at those parties weren't just fans or industry heads. Some of them were undercover law enforcement, watching his every move and just waiting for the right moment to take him down. And after a 15-year-long investigation with federal and local task forces, including the IRS, the feds finally made their move. They stacked up 900 pages of wiretaps, snitch statements, bank records, and round-clock surveillance, building up an airtight case. Then in 2005, they finally pulled the trigger. Big Meech and Southwest T both got taken down on drug and racketeering charges in a massive sting. T got caught in St. Louis, while Meech was bagged in Frisco, Texas. And they ain't going down alone. 150 other BMF affiliates got rounded up, officially putting an end to one of the biggest street empires hip-hop had ever seen.
U.S. Marshals say this man, one of Atlanta Police Department's top 10 most wanted, and a member of an organized crime family, is now behind bars. U.S. Marshals tell me they arrested 37-year-old Ernest Dennis and 40-year-old Jonathan Manigo here outside of Buckhead Hotel. Both men, they say, are members of the so-called Black Mafia family, or BMF.
Anyone tied to BMF typically has an extensive criminal history, so we consider them to be very violent.
Investigators say the organization BMF is heavily involved in drug trafficking and has been in Atlanta at least since 2004. At that time, federal agents seized this limo with secret compartments that had almost $1 million hidden in.
But even before the raid, BMF already knew what time it was the walls were closing in, and when the feds snatched up Southwest T. First Meech actually had the chance to make a run for it. He could have skipped town and laid low in Mexico to dodge the case completely, but instead of fleeing, he decided to stick it out. First, he dipped to Miami, then made his way to Frisco, where the feds eventually caught up to him.
Couldn't do it. If I was for self, I could have did that. I could have grabbed a bunch of millions and been on somewhere where you can't be extradited. But that wasn't what I was out for. I was out. I've already played the legal game to the fullest. So now I was trying to legitimize me and the whole family. I mean, I was 37 years old when I got picked up, so I was slowing down anyway, because I was getting kind of tired. But when you the face of the family, that's the one thing that I was trying to learn. Even at 37 years old, even though I'm feeling old, because I've been doing it so long, like I was getting kind of tired. You know me, I'm popping pills, smoking weed, drinking, and partying, freaking, getting money, got whips going up and down the road, and I'm doing everything to try to make this family successful, and everything we do look big.
The feds came through. They ain't just snatched up the Funnery brothers, they took down their whole family, too, their dad, their sister, even their girlfriends got caught up, all because their names were on the deeds to homes and businesses used to wash BMF's money. The DEA saw this as leverage and tried to use it against Meech and Tay, offering them a deal. If they took full responsibility, their family would walk free, and that's exactly what they did. The feds came for BMF, heavy charging the Funnery brothers under the continuing criminal enterprise statute. Big Meech and Southwest T both pleaded guilty and got hit with 30-year federal sentences. T ended up catching a break in 2020 when CO hit, and he got released early to serve the rest of his time on house arrest. But Meech, he wasn't that lucky. They denied his request for compassionate release, even with health concerns. And then finally, after doing 2 decades behind bars, Big Meech walked free in October 2024, but under strict conditions to finish out his sentence.
Flannery and his brother Terry ran one of the country's largest operations during the late 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. The pair had hundreds of employees, generated hundreds of millions of dollars, and even had a successful record label and magazine. But in 2006, the brothers were indicted in a federal RICO case originating out of Georgia.
BMF was the first group that was accused of being both a criminal organization and a record label.
Attorney Josh Schiffers says Demetrius, also known as Big Meech, is highly regarded because he never took a deal or snitched on his co-conspirators.
And he went down. When he went down, he and his brother were sentenced to 30 years in prison.
In 2020, Terry Flannery was released, and just this week, Big Meech was released from prison. He will serve the remainder of his sentence at a halfway house in Miami.
While the Funnery brothers were locked up, BMF didn't just fade away, it became a legend. Their names stayed alive through music, fashion, and interviews, cementing their legacy in the culture. 5 years after they got taken down, Big Meech's story turned into a full-blown pop culture moment. It started with the book BMF, The Rise and Fall of Big Meech and the Black Mafia Family by Maya Shalhoub, dropping in 2010. That same year, Rick Ross came through with his hit single BMF, blowing money, fast putting Meech's lifestyle on full display. Then by 2020, off the strength of BMF's name, 50 Cent and Stars turned the Empire story into a hit TV series with Big Meech's own son Lil Meech making his acting debut, playing his father. The show went crazy, and by 2022, 50 and Stars dropped an 8-hour docu-series BMF documentary, Blowing Money Fast. Then in 2023, 50 kept expanding the BMF universe, announcing 3 spin-offs and a 3rd season in the works. But just when it seemed like BMF was only getting bigger, one photo changed everything. When Big Meech linked up with Rick Ross right after getting out, the picture went viral, and it kicked off a major fallout between him and 50 ain't hold back. He straight up accused Meech of snitching and announced the end of the BMF series. As for Meech, he's staying quiet on the drama with 50, but he did make one thing clear: he never snitched on nobody.
I wasn't going to address this
because I'm not trying to let nobody trick me off the streets. But I never fold, never told, never will. Death before the time, always.
But 50 ain't letting up, and now he's saying he got actual paperwork proving Meech worked with the feds. But some folks ain't buying it because those documents were floating around for a minute. And even then, they don't straight up call Meech an informant. Now, this is where things get tricky. Even if Tammy Cowan snitched and helped cut Meech's sentence down, that doesn't automatically mean Meech was involved. If this was a real deal, that would mean Meech was in on it and gave Tammy the go-ahead to spill info in exchange for a break. But if he ain't know or didn't play a role, then it's more of a legal technicality than Meech actually telling. Now 50's son is pushing the idea that Meech did know what was up and was the one feeding Tammy info to pass along to the feds. But cats like Gangster Williams, who really know Meech, say they ain't buying it and swear Meech never folded. So what y'all think? Why is 50's son pushing this whole Meech snitch narrative so hard? And if this paperwork has been out for years, why was 50 cool with making a whole TV show about him? But now that Meech linked up with Rick Ross, suddenly it's a problem. Is 50 just being a hypocrite, or do y'all see where he's coming from? Sound off in the comments and don't miss what's